Okay, so welcome back to the next lecture, that is 30th lecture, and this is the last lecture in this week, that is 6th week. Now, you see what we have done so far. Okay. We started discussing about strategic performance management, and in the beginning we talked about what it is, why it needs to be strategically aligned with the goals and objectives. Okay. And then we also see that when we are setting the goals at different levels are going to be congruent and consistent with each other, starting from the individual, and then we try to look at a performance management process or system in the organization, okay, which has different parts, right, starting with prerequisites, planning, implementation, and finally looking at the performance, right. So, now we have completed more or less all these steps. Okay. Now, the question arises that once you have evaluated, analyzed and submitted the data, the report of the performance to the HR department, what next, right. So, in this lecture basically we are going to talk about that what is the use of this performance data, right. So, because you are going to take or make use of this data for taking certain decisions related to the employees, right. It could be administrative decisions or it could be related to the development, right. So, we have to see that how we can make use of these performance management data for making HR decisions, right, or HR related decisions or employee related decisions, right. So, if you look at this performance management system data, what does it produce? It produces basically, to start with, the plan, development and performance plan of the individuals, right. And then we also identify during the performance analysis that what is the current knowledge and skill of the individual, and if there is a gap in the knowledge and skill which is required by the individual or not. So, basically this performance analysis data provides you information about the gap in the knowledge and skill base, that the difference between the actual knowledge or the actual knowledge and skill that he has and expected knowledge and skill, because that is linked with the performance, right. You also have data related to the performance standards at different levels, right. And this data could be related to individual, it could be related to the group, departments as well as the organization, right. Because this data which we are talking about, especially related to the standards, has been pre-specified, okay, quantitatively in each case to see that what you are need to achieve, and then you, when you compare it with the performance of the employees, you will be able to see how well the person is able to perform, right. So, you generate lot of data related to the individual performance, related to the gap in the performance. You also say that what is the performance level of the individual in compared to when we are going to compare it with the standards of the performance, right. You also get data whether ratings are accurate or not, and whether supervisors are biased in the rating, and what kind of errors they have made. They might be making intentional errors or unintentional errors, right. Then you also have data about performance of the accomplishments of the individuals, how well they have performed, starting with outstanding to poor performance, right. Okay. And then you also see that how this performance management system has been going on in the organization, okay, and whether the trend is showing improvement or remarkable improvement in the performance of the individual, group or the organization. So, if you have performance data, say for the organization, say for example, we are talking about say market share. So, you look at the market share in 2014, market share in the 15, market share in the 15, 16, 17, right. And if you find that there is an upward trend, it means that it shows that there has been a significant improvement in the performance of the organization, right. Similarly, at the group level you find that there is a upward movement, okay. So, the arrow goes up, then you can say yes, the performance has been improving, but if the arrow goes down, it means that the performance is not significantly improves. So, this data also can say that what is the trend in the performance at different levels, and from there you can find out how well individual, group or organizations are performing. Okay. From this data you can also identify the development in need of the people, especially you find that there is a gap, then you find what needs to be done with those individuals who are not able to perform well. So, the idea is that performance management system generates a lot of data related to various aspects of the performance, okay. And then we can use this for making different kind of decisions. For example, if you find that there is a gap in the performance, okay, because of knowledge and skill which you have identified based on the performance analysis, right. So, this is the data that you have generated, then you are going to use this data to identify what kind of training needs will be there and how we are going to make sure that people are able to improve their performance, right. You know that you have data on related to the performance, okay, especially the financial performance of different units of the corporates, that is the business unit data, okay, how much revenue they are generating, what is the return on assets, right, what is their profitability. So, these kind of data will tell you what is the trend and that can help you to take certain decisions, what needs to be done, how we can improve upon these kind of things. And that is where we are generating a lot of data through this performance management system, okay, which can help you to take a number of decisions, especially related to the employees, groups and the organization, right. And that is why PMS data is very important. So, let us look at this example. This example suggests what? Okay. You can see two different lines, one is related to the reward and the other one is related to the number of employees who have performed well or not. Okay. Now, if you look at this, the percentage of total reward that is spent, it moves up from say from 0% or 2% to 35%, right. And if you look at the number of employees that have received this kind of is, then you can say that yes, many of them have done well and they have got good rewards, okay, but some of them have not been able to achieve that level of performance, right. Now, what this is the data that you have related to the rating of the employees in terms of their performance, and based on this rating you have given them reward, right. Now, you are going to take certain decisions based on this. So, what kind of decisions could be taken based on this data, where you have the rating distributions and also how much you are going to spend on the reward, right. Now, if you look at this and you see here, it is something like this, right. Now, you see the difference between the great and good. It means that those who are performing at an average level, you have spending more on them, so far as reward is concerned, compared to those who are performing above average and they are less rewarded. It means that total percent of reward that you are going to spend on them is only 25%, right. On average, you are going to spend 30%, right. Okay. So, why this discrepancy exists and how it could be corrected? It means that you need to take a decision that whether you are going to use this data for rewarding employees or not, or whether you are going to take a different decision, right. So, this kind of data could be used for taking certain decisions, including rewarding employees, promoting employees, okay, identifying training needs and development needs of the people, right. And that is why I am given this information to explain that how rating distribution compared with reward is represented and what kind of flaw you can find out with this data, right. So, you can see that almost 50% employees here are getting this, while 40% are good, but better than I am good, you can say 50 employees are better, but if you look at the amount of money that is being spent is less, or the total reward is less than this, right. Similarly, when they are below average, right, then what happens? It suddenly steeps down. Okay. It means that if your rating is low, then the reward, how much you are going to spend, I mean the quality of the reward is also very less, right, just 10%. That is also. So, it is not very symmetrical. Okay. Since this rating is not symmetrical, right, it shows that on an average employees have performed very well. It means because you find here 50, 40 and 60, 160 employees have done very well, except 20 and 25 employees have done poorly, right. But if you want to force it in a particular distribution, which is not good. Okay. So, there could be lot of issues which can come up and that can be inferred from this kind of data, right. Another data is a data related to the mid-year review. Okay. The company name is disguised here, okay. Especially in top 10 areas of personal development. Now, if you look at this data, see that percent of people, okay, and then the development need that has been identified, okay, starting with, okay, 1 to 2, and then what is the strength, okay, that is 4 to 5. Now, if you look at this, if you look at these accounts which have been talking about, like does detailed planning and set a priorities or not. It means that when you are going to review the performance halfway of the employees, whether you take up these activities or not, whether you give feedback or not, whether you tell them the big picture, whether you are trying to influence and persuade employees to do better, right, whether you help them to, are they are solving the problem, whether creative enough or not, okay, whether they are taking decision making based on the data or not, okay, whether the healthy disregard for conventional wisdom, okay, finds and creativity applies, best in class practices, you have whether the employees are really empowered, they have a sense of ownership or not, okay, and whether you are able to manage conflict and confrontation. Okay. On these accounts, okay, now you look at this, what happens? Most cases you have been able to rate it here. So, you will find that on these accounts you have identified the development needs and you have also identified the strength, right. It means the most of the employees are good so far as database decision making is concerned, but the rating is poor, especially in the mid review so far as giving feedback, getting big picture, influencing and problem solving. Similarly, here also you will find that these things are lacking, right. So, what does this suggest? This is the data that you have got from the employees performance review, that is the mid year performance review, and this suggests that what needs to be done, right. So, you are going to take certain decisions that how you are going to overcome those weaknesses, especially in these areas, right. So, this is not a concern here, but this is a concern because here it is not very good, right, or if you look at this, the scoring is not good. So, what I mean to say here is that you also need to identify the strength and the development needs both, right, and very few people have scored well. So, only on two accounts you will find on 2 criteria they have been doing well, otherwise not. So, you need to identify those areas which needs improvement, okay, based, and this is based on the data, right. So, unless you have data you cannot take certain decisions, or even you cannot think about taking corrective actions or modifying goals and standards midway when you are going to, we have completed this mid year review, that before the final performance review they are able to correct themselves and perform well. So, the decision can be taken at every level to see that what is happening with the individual, how well they are performing on the different accounts, and when you take up this review and you have this data, this could be used for taking certain decisions, right. Now, when it comes to using performance data, right, you take 2 kind of decisions, right. One is known as HR related decisions, that is mostly administrative in nature. Similarly, you also take certain decisions which could be called developmental in nature, right. So, HR decisions are administrative decisions, and these administrative decisions are merely nothing else but related to promotion, right, rewards, incentives, bonuses, right, giving additional responsibilities, right, these kind of things, right. But you can also take certain developmental decisions, right, going for a training program, sponsoring them for training, going for job rotation, career development, looking at their potential, then try to develop them, or delegating authorities to them, right. So, that is why I had been talking about this. Now, if you look at this, these are the development needs and these are the strength. So, you can take certain development related decisions based on this data, and you can also take certain HR decisions based on this data, because that is going to tell you who is to be promoted, who are the employees who are doing very well, and what needs to be done with such employees. Okay. If they have the potential, they have been performing well, so you are going to link it with the reward, okay. And you are also going to ensure that they are able to perform well, right. So, when we are talking about performance data, that needs to be done at the first place, and then you see that how we are going to make use of different kind of data that is generated during the performance appraisal process, right. So, you are going to take lot of decisions based on this, it could be developmental or administrative in nature, right. So, how do we go about it? Okay. So, if you are going to take a developmental decisions, it means that you are going to looking at the strength of the individuals, okay, and also the weaknesses, and based on that you are going to identify the training need of the people. Okay, that is one. Second type of decision that you are going to take is administrative decisions, which could be related to rewards, and these administrative decisions are taken by the HR department and top management. But when it comes to say developmental decisions, for example, training needs, then you see that okay, what are the areas of strength and what are the areas of weak, and how this person could be trained to improve his performance, right. So, identify the gap in the performance, right, and then you think about what needs to be done in order to develop that individual. Okay. So, you also identify the appropriate mechanism. Okay. Sometimes training may not be a solution, right, because person does not lack the skill and knowledge base. So, you can think about some kind of other alternatives like motivation, using certain motivational techniques, counseling, right. So, there could be different mechanism for improving the performance of the individual, right, and then ultimately you are going to link performance with the reward, right, and this reward could be in terms of promotions, transfers also. Transfer is not a reward, but provided it is to a different place or the person does not like it, or giving increment in the salary, or sending the individual for advanced training, right. So, when you are talking about using data, it could be used for different kind of purposes, starting with identifying the training needs, taking certain administrative decisions, and also giving reward to the employees based on the data that we have, right. And this reward could be in terms of these things, right. You can think that okay, the person has performed outstandingly very well. So, let us promote him to the next level, right. If he is not able to perform, or you find that there is a problem with the job fit and the person, then you can think about giving him a different kind of job, or it could be in terms of increment of the salary, right. Not promoting, but you are giving some kind of bonus or increment in the salary. So, the person feel happy and satisfied. He thinks that okay, his performance is being recognized, and that is why he has been given increment, or he is being sent to higher education, higher training, and these kind of things. Okay. So, when whatever decisions you are taking, whether it is administrative or developmental, make sure that you are using that performance data properly. Now, the question is whether the performance data that you have collected is reliable and valid or not. It will be reliable and valid only when you have error free data, and error free data is possible only when supervisors are trained to collect and record performance accurately, and that is why we talked about rater training, and that is why you also get, when you collect data, you also check the reliability and the validity of the data. Okay. Whether this data is subject to certain errors, right, and these errors could be because of the way rating has been done, or it could also be because of the kind of method that you have used in the evaluation process, right. So, if it is because of the error from the supervisor side, that need to be corrected, the supervisor need to be trained to ensure that he does not make any error, or your performance system is not very effective, and that is why the data that is yield or generated is not good, and that is why there are certain problems, right. So, the first thing that we need to do is, and it is basically developmental need, right. In approach that you based on these performance data, you can identify the strength and weaknesses of the employees, right. So, once you have collected the ratings of the employees, and make sure that it is reliable and valid, okay, because any decision on this data is going to affect the employees, his motivation, his performance further, his say morale, everything. So, you need to ensure that you are able to collect correct data, right. That is the first, and the data is reliable, accurate and valid. Then you categorize people at different levels, right. For example, you can identify the performance level of different kind of employees across hierarchies, right, or across functions, right. For example, in a case you can cite branch managers, zonal managers, regional managers, right. For example, in an organization it could be say business unit heads, marketing heads, production heads, right. Then you see that what are their performance, what are the areas where they need improvement and what are the areas where they have done very well. Okay. The idea is that you are not going to organize an individual training program for each employees, right, because you are going to identify the kind of competencies which employees have or which employees do not have, right. So, the idea here is to identify a common set of competencies for which you are going to have a training program, okay. And that is possible only when you try to explore these areas of improved across a set of people vertically and horizontally, and then you club them together and see that what are the behavioral competencies these people need, and for that what kind of training would be required, right. And the process, how this process happens, you have the performance data across people, across levels in the hierarchy, okay, and then you look at the rating, okay, for each of the KPIs, right, because your training depends upon the area in which the person is weak, and this area is related to your key performance area, right. So, you need to identify that what is the rating of performance of each individual in each key performance areas, and this exercise has to be carried out for all the employees across the board, right. So, that you can identify a common set of competencies for which the employees need to be trained, because you want to ensure that your training program is going to be cost effective, and you are not going to organize the individual training program for each people, right. So, this exercise happens like this, right. Okay. So, you have KPIs, right, at different levels of the employees and also at different levels of this, right, vertically and horizontally both. Once KPI is identified, you know that okay, what are the areas of improvement at each level, vertically and horizontally. Okay. So, you identify those common areas especially related to behavioral competencies, this will help you to identify the number of people who need training, okay, and the areas where they need training. Okay, across the board, both vertically and horizontally. So, once you are able to identify the number of people who need training, areas of training, then you try to match it. Okay. Say one area is, say for example, you identified that leadership, another area that you identify is problem solving, third area is communication. Okay. These are the common areas of behavioral competencies, okay, that you have identified, and you think that okay, people need to improve upon this for better performance, and then you see that how many people are going to be here, how many people are lacking this, how many people are lacking this. Okay. Then you are going to prioritize it. Prioritize in the sense that you are going to see that how many people need training in a particular area and how important that training is for the performance of the individual as well as the organization, right. So, you identify that okay, communication is one such area which is really affecting the performance of a lot of people. Okay. So, first area that you have identified is communication, for which you are going to conduct a training program, right. Okay. Because HR department might be having a budget constraints, resource constraints. Okay. So, they cannot organize all the programs. So, they need to prioritize and they identify okay, most of the people are lacking this particular skill. So, let us organize a program in the area of communication skill first, right, because the number of people who need training in this are more than any other areas, right. Okay. Similarly, you can also identify related to the skills, that what are the various skills which is required by the organization, which is more important, right. So, this prioritization is done based upon relevance and importance of that area for contribution of in performance. So, relevance and important for performance is the only criteria through which you can identify what are the various areas which needs improvement, and then you are going to organize training from, then you identify the next area, then third area, and that is how you proceed, right. So, this is the process through which we move to identify this, right. So, then you are able to identify various areas whether it is related to skill, motivation or behavior, and based on that you are going to conduct this kind of analysis. Then the next stage, as I told you that you are going to take certain administrative decisions related to reward and all kind of things, okay. And these kind of decisions are taken by the top management and in consultation with the HR and the line managers. So, they are going to decide who is going to be rewarded, how much reward is to be given, what kind of reward would be appropriate, right, okay, and who is to be promoted, right. So, these decisions are administrative decisions. Okay. So, basically you are taking certain administrative decisions based on the training need identification, and then here you are taking certain administrative decisions, and this administrative decisions is going to decide that yes, those who are doing very well, perform well, they would be rewarded and promoted, because you are ultimately linking performance with the reward, right. So, basically you need to reward the performance, right. So, this could be salary increment, it could be an annual performance rewards like giving prizes either cash or kind or some extra privileges to the employees, right, or it could be outstanding like lump sum money, certificate, memento. So, basically you need to take these administrative decisions depending upon two things: how this reward is being valued by the employees in terms of its importance, and whether this reward is going to motivate employees for better performance or sustain that level of performance or not. Okay. Or it could be in terms of promotions, transfers or job enrichment, right. For example, a salesman is doing a very good job in one area. So, you can also see that he is given more responsibilities, right. So, basically the idea is that you are going to take certain administrative decisions based on the performance data, okay, and that is you are rewarding employees on the basis of that one. Okay. Or there could be other kind of rewards that is possible, like sponsoring to tours and conferences, giving appreciation letters, certificates. Sometimes we say that okay, telling him that okay, he is the employee of the month, basically that is a kind of recognition that you make, right. Or you can send him to advanced training, so that he could take up senior positions at later stage, or you can also announce it on websites, blogs, portals that okay, he is the person who has done very well. Okay. And all this is based on the performance. So, it could be financial or non-financial. Okay. Make sure that this is going to help the individual to not only motivate and maintain that performance, but also sustain in the future. This is a data on 45 companies, which says that how companies use reward related to the performance. So, most of the companies basically they give either salary increment to the employees or promotions or cash rewards. Okay. So, this is the rating, right. So, these are the most important rewards that is given based on the performance. So, most of the companies, you find that 73% of companies have gone for salary increment, 40% for promotions, some of them have gone for cash rewards or going for foreign travel also, right. Then they go for non-financial rewards like training, tours, taking more responsibility, challenging job, these kind of things, right. And that is how administrative decisions are taken based on the performance reward, right. Now, when it comes to using this data, then for reward you have to see that yes, he is properly judged, so that right person gets the right kind of reward, right. And whatever reward is being given, he knows that okay, this is the reward that is being given to him, and it is really valuable to him, because that is there is a question of motivation and sustenance. Because if he thinks that the reward that is being given to him is not very valuable, then probably that will not motivate him, right. And then it is also used as a form of recognition, so that others are motivated by that. Okay. So, if he is giving some valuable reward, probably others would be motivated, because they think that okay, he is being rewarded for this. So, they should also go for these kind of things. So, because it is some kind of value addition to the individual, basically where you are going to recognize the performance of the individual, right. And then rewarding him, because that acts as a motivator for other employees in the organization. These are some other examples, like if you think that okay, you want to engage them with performance, high performance, right. So, you link it with the employee engagement, high performance employees could be given more jobs, right. Then if you have line managers perceive that yes, high performance is related to the customers, then link performance management system and customer satisfaction data. If you think that yes, your department with the highest performance ratings, those delivering the most bottom line profit, then you link it with the sales data, because sales is going to give you the data related to the how much sales you have made, how much money you have generated, right. Say for HR people, if you find that okay, candidate analysis response pattern or job board performance have better helped the job boards to get the best performing candidates, it means that your recruitment is more effective. It means you are linking recruitment boards with the performance data, especially for the recruitment boards, right, or the HR people, right. Now, if you think that okay, the networking is done for good performance, okay, and to sustain high performance, then you are going to link performance data with social media data, because you think that you have been better able to use social media for better performance. So, there could be different kind of data related to customer satisfaction, engagement, right, sales, okay, new employees, or even social media, which could be linked with the performance management system of the organization, right. Now, here is another example that how performance data has been used for taking certain HR decisions, right. Now, if you look at this, what does this suggest? Okay, that only few companies have been able to use it excellently well. Okay. This is for a particular organization, and the data is for 2014 and 15. Now, if you look at this, utilizing HR and talent, operational reporting and scorecards have been used very less, only 9%, while 53%, especially if you look at them, have a very weak regard, and many of them did not apply. It means that many times you will find that this performance data has not been utilized for taking certain say HR decisions. Okay. Many of these companies not have even gone for the workforce planning year after year based on this performance of the employees. It means that employee output or performance has not been considered when it comes to planning of the number of employees, the quality and quantity of employees, right. See, HR data has not also been correlated with the business performance, it is especially the employees, right. Only few you will find that in only 5 to 6% company or say organizations have been able to correlate HR data with business performance. Similarly, you will also find that they have not been able to use this data to predict the performance and improvement of the employees, right. So, this shows a very not a very say a motivating figure, because in many companies you will find that they have not been able to go for it. Okay. But the track record of most of the companies when it comes to using performance data for certain HR decisions has not been very good. Okay. It varies from 4 to 9% only. So, this suggests that we need to better use performance data, so that whatever decisions we are taking in the interest of the employees, whether it related to administrative decisions or whether it is related to developmental decisions, it is good and it is helping employees to improve their performance, right. Thank you very much.